The stagecoach rattled to a stop in front of Copper Creek's only hotel, kicking up dust that swirled in the late afternoon sunlight. Zara Donovan clutched her small valise tightly, heart pounding against her ribs as she peered through the dirty window. After 3 weeks of travel from Boston, she had finally reached her destination and her future husband. The year was 1879, and at 22, Zara had made the most daring decision of her sheltered life. Responding to an advertisement for a bride in the Western Territories had seemed her only option after her parents' deaths left her with mounting debts and no prospects in Boston society. The letters from Mr. Harold Bentley had been kind enough, if sparse with details. He'd sent train fare and promised a comfortable home on his ranch outside Copper Creek, Wyoming Territory. "End of the line, madam," the driver called. Opening the stagecoach door, Zara stepped down carefully, smoothing her travel-worn blue dress. The small mining town stretched before her, a main street lined with wooden buildings, horses tied at hitching posts, and men in dusty clothes moving with purpose. It was exactly as she had imagined the West would be, thrilling and terrifying all at once. "You must be Miss Donovan," said a thin woman with a severe bun. "I'm Mrs. Winters from the hotel. Mr. Bentley asked me to watch for you." "Yes, that's me. Is Mr. Bentley here?" Zara asked, searching the faces of the men loitering near the stage. Mrs. Winters' lips pressed into a thin line. "He was here earlier. Said to tell you he'd return shortly." Relief and anxiety mingled in Zara's chest. "I see. May I wait inside, perhaps?" "Of course. Let me show you to the dining room. You must be famished." The hotel dining room was simple but clean, with a half-dozen tables covered in checked cloths. Mrs. Winters brought tea and a plate of biscuits, leaving Zara to watch the clock on the wall tick away the minutes. 1 hour passed, then 2. The dining room filled with the evening crowd and still no sign of Harold Bentley. As the clock struck 8, the hotel doors burst open. A man stumbled in, red-faced and unsteady. His clothes were expensive but rumpled, and his eyes had the glazed look of someone who had been drinking heavily. Mrs. Winters hurried over to him. "Mr. Bentley, your bride has been waiting for hours." The man squinted in Zara's direction, then let out a harsh laugh. "That her? She don't look like much." Zara felt the blood drain from her face. This drunken, disheveled man was to be her husband. Harold Bentley staggered toward her table, nearly toppling a chair. "Stand up, girl. Let me see what I paid for." Zara rose slowly, trembling with humiliation as every eye in the dining room turned toward them. She forced herself to meet his gaze. "Mr. Bentley, perhaps we should speak privately once you've had a chance to rest." He laughed again, the sound cruel. "Don't need rest, need a drink." He reached out, grabbing her arm. "Come on, let's get to know each other." "Sir, please." Zara tried to pull away, wincing at his grip. "Let her go." The voice came from behind them, deep and commanding. Zara turned to see a tall man standing in the doorway. His face was partially shadowed by his hat, but she could see the hard set of his jaw. Unlike the other men in town, his clothes were clean, though well-worn, a simple shirt, vest, and denim trousers. A star-shaped badge gleamed on his chest. "Mind your business, Sheriff," Bentley slurred. "A lady's comfort in my town is my business." The sheriff stepped forward, and Zara could see him clearly now. He was younger than she'd expected, perhaps 30, with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of a summer storm. "Release her." Bentley's fingers tightened painfully around Zara's arm. "She's my property." "Paid good money to bring her out here." The sheriff's expression darkened. "A woman isn't property, Bentley. Now let go before I make you." For a moment, Zara thought Bentley might fight, but then his hand dropped away. "Fine, take her. I don't want damaged goods anyway." He turned to Zara, his face twisted with disdain. "Go back where you came from. You ain't what I ordered." With that, he stumbled toward the door, pausing only to snatch a bottle from behind the small bar. Zara stood frozen, the reality of her situation crashing down upon her. She was 3,000 miles from home with no money, no connections, and now no prospect of marriage or security. Tears threatened, but she refused to let them fall in front of these strangers. The sheriff approached slowly, as if giving her space. "Madam, I'm Sheriff Xavier Zimmerman." "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," she answered automatically, though nothing could be further from the truth. "No, you're not," he said gently, "but you will be." Mrs. Winters hurried over, clucking with sympathy. "The nerve of that man, Miss Donovan, what will you do now?" The question hung in the air, unanswerable. Zara had spent nearly every cent she had on necessities for the journey. The return fare to Boston was far beyond her means, and even if she could return, there was nothing waiting for her there. "She'll stay at my sister's boarding house tonight," Sheriff Zimmerman decided, "and tomorrow we'll figure things out." He turned to Zara. "Unless you have other plans." Zara looked into his kind eyes and felt the first flicker of hope since Bentley had stumbled through the door. "I have no plans, Sheriff, no plans at all." "Then it's settled." He offered his arm. "May I escort you? My sister's place is just down the street." As they stepped into the cool evening air, Zara felt the weight of stares from the hotel's windows. She kept her head high, though mortification burned in her chest. "Bentley's a fool," the sheriff said quietly as they walked. "And not just because he's drunk. Any man would be fortunate to have a brave woman like you come all this way." "You're kind to say so, Sheriff, but I feel anything but brave at the moment. Call me Xavier, please, and coming 3,000 miles alone takes courage, Miss Donovan." "Zara," she offered. "My name is Zara. A beautiful name." They walked a few steps in silence. Bentley wasn't always like this. His wife died last winter typhoid. He started drinking and his ranch has been failing ever since. "I suspect that's why he sent for you." "To save his ranch," Xavier nodded, "and perhaps himself, but you deserve better than to be someone's salvation project." They stopped in front of a neat 2-story house with a small sign reading Miller's Boarding House. "My sister Martha runs this place," Xavier explained. "She's a widow herself, understands difficult circumstances." The door opened before they reached the porch, revealing a plump woman with Xavier's same storm gray eyes and a welcoming smile. "Xavier, I wasn't expecting." Her gaze fell on Zara, taking in her travel clothes and small valise, and understanding dawned. "You must be Mr. Bentley's bride." "We heard you were arriving today." "Martha, this is Miss Zara Donovan," Xavier said. "She needs a room." Bentley showed up drunk and essentially abandoned her at the hotel. Martha's face softened with sympathy. "Oh, you poor dear, come in, come in." The boarding house was modest but immaculate, with polished wood floors and simple furnishings. A delicious aroma wafted from the kitchen. "I've just made a fresh batch of stew," Martha said. "You must be famished after your journey." "That's very kind, but I couldn't impose," Zara began. "Nonsense," Martha interrupted. "You're not imposing, I've plenty to share." Xavier gave his sister a grateful look. "I need to make my evening rounds, but I'll return in the morning to check on you, Miss Donovan." He tipped his hat. "Try not to worry tonight. This town takes care of its own, and for as long as you're here, that includes you." After he left, Martha showed Zara to a small but clean room on the second floor. "It's not fancy, but the bed is comfortable." "It's perfect," Zara said sincerely, "and your kindness means more than you know." "Rest now," Martha said. "Things often look brighter in the morning." Alone in the room, Zara finally allowed her tears to fall. She had risked everything on this journey, and now she faced a future even more uncertain than before. Yet amid the fear and disappointment, she felt a strange sense of reprieve. From their brief correspondence, she had never been fully comfortable with the idea of Harold Bentley as a husband. Perhaps this was a blessing in disguise. With that comforting thought, she prepared for bed, wondering what the Wyoming sunrise would bring. The morning light streamed through the simple curtains, rousing Zara from the deepest sleep she'd had in weeks. For a moment she was disoriented, then the events of the previous day came rushing back. She sat up, running her hands through her tousled chestnut hair. A soft knock sounded at the door. "Miss Donovan, breakfast is ready whenever you are," called Martha's cheerful voice. "Thank you." "I'll be down shortly," Zara replied, hurrying to make herself presentable. The boarding house dining room held a long table where several residents were already enjoying their morning meal. Martha introduced Zara to the others, a retired schoolteacher, a young clerk from the mercantile, and an elderly couple who had come west for the man's health. "My brother should be joining us." Martha said as she served Zara a plate of eggs and bacon. He always takes breakfast here after his night rounds. As if summoned by her words, Xavier entered, removing his hat as he crossed the threshold. In the clear morning light, Zara could better appreciate his features: the straight nose, the firm jaw softened by the hint of a smile, the way his dark hair curled slightly at his collar. "Good morning," he said, his gaze finding Zara immediately. "I hope you slept well." "Better than expected, thank you." He took the empty seat beside her. "I've been thinking about your situation. There aren't many options for single women in Copper Creek, but there are a few." Martha placed a steaming cup of coffee before her brother. "The milliner's been looking for an assistant," she suggested. "And the school might need help," added the retired teacher, "especially with the new families arriving for the railroad work." Zara was touched by their willingness to help. "I'm grateful for any suggestions. I have some experience with bookkeeping from helping my father, and I'm quite skilled with a needle." "That's promising," Xavier said, "but there's another possibility I wanted to discuss." He hesitated, seeming uncharacteristically uncertain. "I received word this morning that Bentley left town on the early stage. He's apparently sold his ranch to cover his debts." "Oh," Zara said, unsure how this affected her. "The thing is," Xavier continued, "his ranch foreman, Joe Miller, is staying on to manage the place for the new owner. Joe was asking if you might still be interested in a position there." Zara stiffened. "I came here to be a wife, Sheriff, not a—" "No," he interrupted quickly. "Nothing improper. They need someone to cook and keep the house for the ranch hands. It's honest work with room and board provided." Martha frowned. "A ranch is no place for a lady alone, Xavier." She wouldn't be alone. Joe's wife Sarah would be there, and they live in the foreman's cottage on the property. The main house has separate women's quarters for the housekeeper. Zara considered this option. She had no experience as a housekeeper, having grown up with servants of her own, but her circumstances had changed drastically. "How far is this ranch from town?" "About 5 miles. I'd make sure you were safely settled, and I ride out that way on my rounds regularly." There was something in his voice that made Zara look up sharply. Was the sheriff personally concerned for her welfare? The thought brought unexpected warmth to her cheeks. "It would give you time to decide what you really want," Xavier added. "Whether that's staying in Copper Creek or saving for passage back east." Zara nodded slowly. "I suppose I could try it, at least temporarily." Xavier's face brightened. "Excellent, I can take you out there today if you're willing." "So soon?" "The sooner you're settled, the better, I think. Especially given the talk around town." "Talk?" Zara asked, her stomach sinking. Martha shot her brother a warning look. "Xavier," he sighed. "People are curious about you, Miss Donovan. Bentley's behavior at the hotel last night is already the talk of Copper Creek." Zara set down her fork, appetite vanishing. Of course there would be gossip. A mail-order bride abandoned by her intended. It was the sort of scandal that would feed conversation for weeks. "Perhaps it would be best if I left town quickly," she agreed. After breakfast, Zara packed her few belongings while Martha prepared a basket of food for her. "Joe and Sarah are good people," Martha assured her, "but if you're ever uncomfortable, you send word and we'll bring you straight back." "Thank you for everything," Zara said, impulsively hugging the older woman. "Your kindness to a stranger means more than I can express." Martha patted her back. "You're not a stranger anymore, you're a friend." Xavier was waiting outside with a wagon. He helped Zara climb onto the seat, his hand warm and steady under her elbow. As they pulled away from the boarding house, Zara caught glimpses of curious faces watching from windows and doorways. "Don't mind them," Xavier said, following her gaze. "They'll find something new to talk about soon enough." The journey to the ranch took them through rolling grasslands dotted with wildflowers, the distant mountains a purple smudge against the horizon. Zara had never seen such open space, such vast sky. Despite her circumstances, she couldn't help feeling a thrill of wonder. "It's beautiful," she breathed. Xavier glanced at her, a smile touching his lips. "Most Easterners find it too empty at first. No, it's liberating, all this space to breathe. That's why I could never leave, even when Martha urged me to go back east for law school." There's something about this land that gets in your blood. They crested a small rise, and suddenly the ranch spread before them, a collection of buildings nestled in a small valley, with a creek winding through lush pastureland. Cattle dotted the hillsides, and horses grazed in a nearby corral. "Welcome to the Lazy Bee," Xavier said. "Though I suppose it'll have a new name soon." As they approached, a man and woman emerged from a small cottage near the main house. Joe Miller was a weathered, compact man with kind eyes, and his wife Sarah had a warm smile that immediately set Zara at ease. "Miss Donovan, welcome," Joe said, helping her down from the wagon. "I'm real sorry about Mr. Bentley's behavior. He wasn't always like that. So I've been told," Zara replied. Sarah linked her arm through Zara's. "Come, let me show you the house. It's a fine place, just needs a woman's touch." The main house was larger than Zara had expected, built of sturdy logs with a wide porch. Inside, it was dusty but well constructed, with a large kitchen, a dining room that could seat a dozen men, and several bedrooms upstairs. "This would be your room," Sarah said, showing her a small but pleasant chamber at the back of the house. "It's private with its own entrance if you want." "It's very nice," Zara said, genuinely pleased with the arrangement. While the women toured the house, Xavier spoke with Joe outside. When Zara emerged onto the porch, she found the sheriff preparing to leave. "You're going already?" she asked, surprised by her own disappointment. "Duty calls," he said, "but I'll be back in a few days to see how you're settling in." "Thank you for everything, Sheriff." His eyes crinkled at the corners. "Xavier, remember, we don't stand on ceremony out here." "Xavier," she amended, liking the way his name felt on her lips. He tipped his hat, then swung up onto his horse with easy grace. "Take care, Miss Donovan, Zara," she called after him. "If I'm to call you Xavier, then you must call me Zara," he smiled fully, then transforming his serious face. "Zara it is." As she watched him ride away, Zara felt a curious mixture of nervousness and anticipation. Her life had taken a completely unexpected turn, yet somehow she couldn't bring herself to regret it. The next few days passed in a flurry of activity as Zara learned her new duties. Sarah was a patient teacher, showing her how to manage the large wood-burning stove, make bread that would satisfy hungry ranch hands, and organize the household tasks efficiently. "You're a quick learner," Sarah remarked on the third day as they prepared dinner for the men. "Most city girls would be complaining by now." "I'm grateful for the opportunity," Zara said honestly, "and I'm determined to earn my keep." The ranch hands were respectful, if curious about her. They'd clearly heard the story of how she came to Copper Creek, but none mentioned it directly. Instead, they complimented her cooking and thanked her for the clean shirts she provided. On her fourth evening at the ranch, Zara was sitting on the porch, enjoying the sunset, when the sound of hoofbeats drew her attention. Her heart quickened as she recognized Xavier riding toward the house. "Evening," he called, dismounting smoothly. "Something smells delicious." "Just finished dinner," Zara replied, suddenly self-conscious about her work dress and the loose braid she'd adopted for practicality. "There's plenty left if you're hungry. I wouldn't say no to a home-cooked meal." He tied his horse to the rail and joined her on the porch. "You're looking well. Ranch life agrees with you." It was true. Despite the hard work, Zara felt healthier than she had in months. The fresh air and regular meals had brought color to her cheeks and a sparkle to her eyes. "I'm adjusting better than I expected," she admitted. "Come inside and I'll fix you a plate." In the kitchen, Xavier sat at the table while Zara served him beef stew and fresh bread. "This is wonderful," he said after the first bite. "A man could get used to eating like this." "It's Sarah's recipe. She's teaching me all the ranch favorites." "And how are you finding the men? Respectful, I hope." "Very much so. I think Joe had a stern talk with them before I arrived." Xavier nodded approvingly. "Joe runs a tight outfit. Have you learned anything about the new owner?" Zara asked, sitting across from him. "Some banker from Cheyenne named Thompson. Word is he's buying up properties all over the territory, probably won't visit more than once a year." "That's good for Joe and Sarah, I suppose. They can continue as before." "And for you?" Xavier asked, his gaze direct. "How long do you think you'll stay?" Zara considered the question. "I'm not sure. I don't have many options, to be honest." You have more than you realize, Xavier said quietly. Martha mentioned the milliner in town is still looking for help. And there's talk of opening a proper ladies' dress shop if someone with the right skills could be found. A dress shop, Zara perked up. I'm quite accomplished with a needle. It was one of the few useful skills my finishing school provided. Then perhaps that's something to consider for the future. Xavier finished his meal and pushed back from the table. I should be going, it'll be dark soon. Thank you for checking on me, Zara said, walking him to the door. It's my job to look after the people in my jurisdiction. Is that all it is? Your job? Their eyes met, and something passed between them, something new and fragile and full of possibility. No, Xavier said softly, that's not all it is. Before Zara could respond, Joe appeared at the bunkhouse door, calling Xavier over to discuss some trouble with rustlers in the area. The moment broken, Zara watched as the sheriff rode away into the gathering dusk, his words echoing in her mind. The weeks passed, and summer settled fully over the Wyoming territory. Zara fell into the rhythm of ranch life, rising with the sun to prepare breakfast for the men, spending the day baking, cleaning, and mending, then watching the sunset from the porch before retiring to her room to read or write in her journal. Xavier's visits became a regular occurrence, though he always had some official reason for coming, checking on reports of trespassers, delivering mail, or bringing news from town. Each time he would stay for a meal and conversation, and each time Zara found herself looking forward to his arrival with increasing eagerness. One hot July afternoon, Zara was hanging laundry when she heard riders approaching. Expecting it to be the ranch hands returning early, she was surprised to see Xavier accompanied by Martha and a stout, well-dressed man she didn't recognize. Zara, Xavier called, dismounting quickly. I've brought visitors. Martha embraced her warmly. You look wonderful, dear. Ranch life clearly agrees with you. It's good to see you, Zara said sincerely. Please come inside out of the heat. As they entered the house, Xavier introduced the stranger. This is Mr. Thompson, the new owner of the ranch. Miss Donovan, Thompson said, bowing slightly. I've heard good things about your management of the household. Thank you, sir. Would you care for some refreshments? Actually, Miss Donovan, I've come with a proposition for you. Thompson removed his hat, revealing a balding head. I've been discussing the property with Sheriff Zimmerman here, and he mentioned your skills with sewing and such. Xavier spoke up. Mr. Thompson owns several businesses in Cheyenne, including a ladies' clothing shop, and I'm looking to expand to smaller towns, Thompson continued. Copper Creek is growing with the railroad coming through, and there's a need for proper ladies' attire. Sheriff Zimmerman suggested you might be the person to manage such an enterprise. Zara looked between them in astonishment. Me, run a dress shop. You'd start small, Thompson explained. I've purchased a building on Main Street. It needs some work, but it could be ready by fall. I'd supply the materials and pay you a percentage of the profits, plus a modest salary. It's a wonderful opportunity, Zara, Martha said. You could have your own place in town, be independent. Zara's mind raced with possibilities. A dress shop of her own, using skills she actually possessed, rather than struggling to learn the duties of a ranch cook. The chance to create beautiful things and interact with the women of Copper Creek. I don't know what to say, she admitted. Say you'll consider it, Xavier urged. You deserve a chance to use your talents. There was something in his expression, a warmth, a hope that made her heart flutter. I will definitely consider it, Mr. Thompson. Thank you for the opportunity. Excellent. I'll be in town for a few more days. You can give me your answer before I leave. Thompson turned to Xavier. Now about that water rights issue we discussed. The men moved to the porch to continue their conversation, leaving Zara alone with Martha. Did you arrange this? Zara asked. Martha smiled. Not entirely. But when Mr. Thompson mentioned wanting to open a shop in town, I might have suggested he meet the talented young woman at the Lazy Bee. And Xavier, my brother has been singing your praises for weeks, Martha said with a knowing look. I believe his exact words were, she's wasted out there at the ranch. A woman like that should have her own business where everyone can appreciate her talents. Warmth spread through Zara's chest. He said that and more. Xavier isn't one for grand declarations, but I know my brother. He's smitten with you, Zara. I've grown fond of him too, Zara admitted, a blush coloring her cheeks. Then perhaps this arrangement would benefit everyone, Martha said. You'd be in town where you could see more of each other without the pretense of official business. The thought was tantalizing. Zara had tried not to dwell on her growing feelings for the sheriff, telling herself that her position was too precarious, her future too uncertain. But the possibility of staying in Copper Creek, of building a life there, perhaps even sharing that life with someone, was suddenly within reach. When the visitors departed, Xavier lingered behind. "Walk with me," he asked, gesturing toward the creek that gave the town its name. They strolled in comfortable silence until they reached the bank, where wildflowers nodded in the breeze. "What do you think of Thompson's offer?" Xavier asked finally. "It's more than I could have hoped for," Zara replied. "A chance to use skills I actually possess to create something of my own." "You've done admirably here at the ranch," Xavier said. "But I've seen your mending, the way you transformed Sarah's old dress, the embellishments you added to the curtains. You have a gift that shouldn't be hidden away. You notice those things?" "I notice everything about you, Zara." The simple statement hung in the air between them, filled with meaning. Zara's heart pounded as Xavier took a step closer. "When you first arrived in Copper Creek, I told Bentley that you deserved to be treated right," he said softly. "I meant it then, and I mean it now. Whatever you decide about the shop, I want you to know that I—" He paused, seeming to search for words. "Yes," Zara prompted, scarcely breathing. "I care for you," he finished. "More than I should, perhaps, given that we've known each other only a short time. But these past weeks, visiting you here, talking with you, they've been the brightest part of my days." Joy surged through Zara. "I feel the same," she confessed. "Your visits are what I look forward to most." Xavier's face transformed with a smile, and he reached for her hand. "Then say yes to Thompson. Come to town. Let me court you properly, without having to invent reasons to ride 5 miles each way." Zara laughed, twining her fingers with his. "Is that why there have been so many reports of suspicious activity near the ranch lately?" "I may have exaggerated certain concerns," he admitted with a sheepish grin. "Though in my defense, wanting to see you seemed like an emergency. Xavier Zimmerman, I never took you for a man who would bend the truth, only for the most important reasons." His expression grew serious again. "Zara, when you came here as Bentley's bride, I couldn't help feeling that fate had made a mistake. A woman like you, with such spirit and intelligence, matched with a broken man like him, it seemed wrong. And now I think perhaps fate knew exactly what it was doing. It brought you to Copper Creek, just not for the reason you expected." Zara thought of all the twists and turns that had led her to this moment: her parents' deaths, the desperate decision to become a mail-order bride, Bentley's cruel rejection, and Xavier's timely intervention. What had seemed like disaster had opened the door to possibility. "I believe you're right," she said. "And yes, I'll accept Mr. Thompson's offer. I want to stay in Copper Creek. I want—" She hesitated, then gathered her courage. "I want to see where this might lead with us." Xavier's smile could have outshone the sun. Slowly, giving her time to withdraw if she wished, he leaned down and pressed his lips to hers in a gentle kiss. Zara responded, her free hand coming up to rest on his chest, feeling the strong beat of his heart beneath her palm. When they parted, Xavier rested his forehead against hers. "I've been wanting to do that since I saw you on Martha's porch your first morning here, with the sunrise in your hair." "You should have," Zara teased. "Think of all the time we've wasted." "We have plenty of time now," he assured her. "All the time in the world." As they walked back to the ranch house, hand in hand, Zara felt a sense of peace settle over her. The uncertainty that had plagued her since leaving Boston was finally giving way to hope. She had come west seeking security through marriage to a stranger. Instead, she had found the possibility of love with a man she was coming to know and cherish with each passing day. The transition from ranch cook to shopkeeper happened more quickly than Zara anticipated. By early August, she had moved into a small apartment above the newly renovated shop on Main Street in Copper Creek. Martha had helped her furnish the space with second-hand pieces, transforming it into a cozy haven that felt more like home than anywhere Zara had lived since her parents' deaths. The shop itself was a dream come true. Mr. Thompson had been generous with the initial inventory, sending fabrics, notions, and patterns from his Cheyenne store. Zara spent her days arranging displays, creating sample garments to showcase her skills, and meeting the women of Copper Creek who stopped by out of curiosity. "It's exactly what this town needed," Martha declared at the unofficial opening. "A place where a lady can order a proper dress without having to travel to Cheyenne." Xavier had been equally supportive, stopping by daily to check on her progress. Sometimes he brought lunch, other times just coffee, but always an encouraging word and the warmth of his smile. True to his word, he courted her properly Sunday dinners at Martha's, picnics by the creek when weather permitted, and walks through town in the evening. Their courtship became common knowledge, and Zara was touched by how the townspeople had accepted her, the scandal of her arrival all but forgotten in the face of the sheriff's obvious affection. On a crisp September evening, Zara was closing the shop when Xavier appeared at the door. "Are you finished for the day?" he asked. "I thought we might take a ride." "A ride? Where to?" "It's a surprise. Dress warmly, the evenings are getting cooler." Intrigued, Zara quickly changed into a riding skirt and warm jacket. Xavier waited with 2 horses, his own chestnut gelding, and a gentle mare he often borrowed from the livery for Zara. They rode out of town, following the creek upstream into the foothills. The aspen trees were beginning to turn, their leaves shimmering gold in the late afternoon light. "It's beautiful," Zara said, breathing in the crisp air. "I never imagined the West could be like this." "Wait until you see winter," Xavier replied. "The whole world turns white and silent. It's like being inside a dream. You'll have to show me." He glanced at her, his eyes crinkling with pleasure. "I plan to." They rode for about an hour, climbing steadily until they reached a small plateau overlooking the valley. Copper Creek was visible in the distance, smoke rising from chimneys as people prepared their evening meals. "This is my favorite spot," Xavier said, helping Zara dismount. "You can see the whole valley from here." He spread a blanket on a flat rock and produced a basket from his saddlebag. "I had Martha pack some dinner. I hope you're hungry." "Starving," Zara admitted, settling beside him. The shop was busy today. Mrs. Peterson ordered 2 dresses for her daughter's wedding, and several ladies wanted new winter cloaks. "The business is doing well, then. Better than I expected." Mr. Thompson seemed pleased with the first month's figures. Xavier handed her a wrapped sandwich. "I'm not surprised. You have a gift for making people feel welcome. Half the women in town stop by the shop just to visit with you," Zara laughed. "And to hear the latest news, I never realized how central a dress shop would be to town gossip." "Speaking of gossip," Xavier said casually, "there's been talk about us." "Oh," Zara felt a flutter of nervousness. "What kind of talk? People wondering when I'm going to make an honest woman of you." He kept his tone light, but there was an undercurrent of seriousness that made Zara's heart race. "And what do you tell them?" she asked, trying to match his casual tone. Xavier set aside his food and turned to face her fully. "I tell them that's between you and me." He took her hand, his expression growing earnest. "But the truth is, Zara, I've been thinking about it a great deal." "Have you?" she whispered. "I know it hasn't been very long, 4 months since you arrived in Copper Creek, just 2 since we acknowledged our feelings for each other." "Some might say it's too soon." "And what do you say?" "I say that sometimes a person knows their own heart." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. "I say that when you find someone who makes you feel the way you make me feel, complete, understood, challenged, and cherished all at once, you don't need years to be certain." Zara's breath caught as he opened the box to reveal a simple gold ring with a small pearl. "It's not fancy," Xavier said, suddenly looking uncertain, "but it was my grandmother's. Martha thought you might like its simplicity." "It's perfect," Zara assured him, tears pricking her eyes. Xavier took a deep breath. "Zara Donovan, when you stepped off that stage 4 months ago, I had no idea how completely you would change my life. I only knew that I wanted to protect you, to make sure you were treated with the respect you deserved." But somewhere along the way, protecting you became caring for you, and caring became. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. It became loving you, deeply and completely. Tears spilled onto Zara's cheeks. Xavier, I love you, Zara. And if you'll have me, I want to spend my life showing you just how much. Will you marry me? The answer was as clear as the mountain air around them. Yes, she said, her voice breaking with joy. Yes, I will marry you. Xavier slid the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms, sealing their engagement with a kiss that left them both breathless. When they finally parted, Zara couldn't stop smiling. I came to Wyoming to marry a stranger, she marveled. Instead, I'm marrying my dearest friend. Life has a way of giving us what we need, not always what we think we want, Xavier said, holding her close as they watched the sun begin its descent behind the mountains. When you first arrived, Bentley said you weren't what he ordered. I remember thinking he was the biggest fool I'd ever met. Because I've turned out to be such an excellent dressmaker, Zara teased. Because you've turned out to be the most extraordinary woman I've ever known, Xavier corrected, his voice serious. Strong enough to travel across a continent alone, brave enough to start over when everything went wrong. Kind enough to win over an entire town in a matter of months. He kissed her again, gently. And generous enough to love a simple sheriff who has nothing to offer but his heart and his name. That's all I've ever wanted, Zara said softly, someone to love who loves me in return. Not for what I can provide or what role I can fill, but for who I am. Then you'll never want for anything again, Xavier promised, because I will love you exactly that way for the rest of our days. They stayed on the plateau until the first stars appeared, talking of their future together, a future neither of them could have imagined just a few months earlier. As they rode back to town in the gathering dusk, Zara felt a sense of rightness, of coming home in the deepest sense. Their wedding took place on a bright October day, with the aspen trees in full golden glory. The whole town turned out for the celebration, held in the small church and spilling over into a reception at the hotel dining room. Even Mr. Thompson came from Cheyenne, bringing with him a generous wedding gift, full ownership of the dress shop, transferred to Zara's name. Consider it an investment in Copper Creek's future, he told the astonished couple. A happy shopkeeper makes for a thriving business. Martha had wept openly as she watched her brother exchange vows with the woman who had arrived so unexpectedly in their lives. I've never seen him so happy, she told Zara during the reception. You've given him something I feared he'd never find out here. He's given me just as much, Zara replied. A home, a purpose, a family. The newlyweds spent their wedding night in a specially prepared room at the hotel. But they had already purchased a small house on the edge of town, close enough for Xavier to walk to the sheriff's office, yet with enough land for a garden and perhaps, someday, room for children to play. The years that followed brought both challenges and joys. Xavier continued as sheriff, respected and admired throughout the county. Zara's dress shop flourished, expanding to include ready-made garments and even a small selection of the latest fashions from back east. They weathered harsh winters and dry summers, range disputes and the changing frontier, always together, always a team. Their first child, a daughter named Alina after Zara's mother, arrived on a snowy night in their second year of marriage. She was followed 2 years later by a son, James, who had his father's serious expression and his mother's curious nature. The family was completed 3 years after that with the arrival of another daughter, Grace, whose laughter filled their home with joy. As the children grew, so did Copper Creek. The railroad brought new residents, new businesses, and new opportunities. The rough mining town gradually transformed into a proper small city, with a school, several churches, and amenities that would have been unthinkable when Zara first arrived. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Xavier surprised Zara by taking her back to the plateau where he had proposed. They rode horses, just as they had that day, though now they were followed by their children on ponies, making a family excursion of the special occasion. As the children explored nearby, carefully supervised by Alina, who took her role as oldest very seriously, Xavier and Zara sat on the same flat rock where their future together had begun. "Are you happy, Mrs. Zimmerman?" Xavier asked, his arm around her waist. Zara leaned her head on his shoulder, watching their children against the backdrop of the mountains and valley that had become home. "Happier than I ever dreamed possible," she answered truthfully. "Even though life here isn't always easy, the best things rarely are." She turned to face him, taking in the beloved features that had become even dearer over the years. There were a few more lines around his eyes, a touch of gray at his temples, but his gaze still held the same warmth that had first drawn her to him. "You know what I think about sometimes?" "What's that?" "I think about Harold Bentley and how devastated I was that night in the hotel dining room." She smiled at the memory that no longer held any pain. "If he hadn't been drunk, if he hadn't rejected me so publicly, we might never have met." "Oh, I think we would have," Xavier said with certainty. "I'd have found a reason to meet the new Mrs. Bentley. I'm not sure I could have stayed away." "Xavier Zimmerman, are you saying you would have courted another man's wife?" He laughed, pulling her closer. "No, but I might have spent a lot of time checking on the lazy bee, making sure the new bride was being treated properly." "Well, I'm glad we didn't have to test your honor," Zara said, pressing a kiss to his cheek. "And I'm especially glad that you were there that night, ready to step in and defend a stranger's dignity." "Best decision I ever made," Xavier said softly, "though asking you to marry me runs a very close second." From down the hillside, their children called for them to come see a rabbit's nest they had discovered. Hand in hand, Xavier and Zara rose to join them, moving together toward the family that had grown from the most unexpected of beginnings. As they walked, Zara reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. She had come west as a desperate gamble, seeking security through marriage to a man she knew only through a handful of letters. Instead, she had found something far more precious, a love born of respect and friendship, a community that had embraced her, and a life richer and more fulfilling than anything she could have imagined in her Boston drawing room. The mail-order bride who had been left behind by a drunk had indeed found a place where she was treated right. Not as property or as a convenience, but as a cherished partner, an equal, a beloved wife and mother. In losing what she thought she wanted, Zara had gained everything that truly mattered. And in the years that followed, as their children grew and their love deepened, Xavier and Zara Zimmerman became a living testament to the unexpected ways that happiness can find us, if only we have the courage to embrace it when it appears.